Hello, welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. We have arrived in Yamanashi. Things haven't changed much in my absence from the mountain. As always, the air is thick with the lusty cries of cicadas, but there's no sign of human presence. Other than squawking insects, the only sounds are the crunching of our feet against the gravel and weeds, and Makina's labored breathing growing quicker and louder with every minute. You alright? The girl can be surprisingly stubborn at times like these. Probably an attempt to demonstrate she's not a helpless weakling who needs to be babied constantly. Still have to be sure to keep an eye on her though, or she might end up collapsing to the ground and falling asleep on the spot. About what? Well, let's see. Where do I even begin? Come to think of it, although I've brought Asako up numerous times, I don't remember getting into the details. I mean, nobody really seemed that interested. No, I guess it was just too awkward to ask. My master's name was Kusakabe Asako. We first met when I was 12 or 13 or so. She was a lot older than me, obviously. I'd lost my entire family a while before this. At the time, a friend of my dad's had taken me in, but... well, that family friend was what you call a bad guy. The kind of man who slips through the cracks in the law, profiting off misery and tearing money away from soft-hearted people. The bad guy in question made some enemies on the shadier side of our government, bit off a little more than he could chew. They decided to bring the hammer down. And a small assault force that invaded the villain's lair, well, mansion, and suppressed it in the blink of an eye, was led by my master, Kusakabe Asako. Yeah, that's the basic outline. Not constantly. Lived here for the first year or so, but I ended up getting shipped off to America fairly soon because of some circumstances with Asako's employer. Good memory. That's right, and in between all that, I lived with Asako. She's the one who helped me find the strength I needed to live. Don't think Mommy quite covers it. If I had to categorize the woman, I'd say she was my master. But in the sense that she raised a cowardly, snot-nosed brat into a reasonably competent man, I guess you could say she was something like a mother. Kusakabe Asako was the only person I've ever called master, and the only person I ever will. I was nothing but a filthy little cockroach she'd happened to carry home from her job one night. We weren't related. She had no obligation to do anything but flush me down the toilet, and instead, she spent the rest of her life raising me. The woman was a force of nature, infallible and unshakable. Even if she's gone, Kusakabe Asako will always be the strongest woman in the world to me. Just as I estimated, after about 30 minutes of trudging up the mountain, the forest around us begins to thin, and the rough dirt trail grows gentle and slope. As we reach an even plot of land that seems to have been cut neatly out of a natural plateau, a single log cabin comes into view beyond a chained-up metal gate. Oh. Alright, Makina, we're here. Grew up in... Well, I guess you could say that. Yeah, this is the house where I was raised. It's only been 2 months or so since I left, but the cabin's already under siege by thick wild grasses. The sight inspires a small twinge of melancholy. Okay, I'm tempted to start attacking those weeds right away, but I guess we should go in and rest for a while first. Yay! I'm learning more about Yuuji now. Don't tee me, kid. Now I have to call up Amane and give her yet another scolding. Removing my keyring from the carabiner I've been using to fasten it to my belt, I select an old-fashioned key with a dull golden color. Push it into the equally old-fashioned keyhole on the oil-finished teakwood door and give it one rotation to the left. The interior of the cabin, naturally enough, hasn't changed at all in the months since I saw it last. Even after I left, I'm pretty confident JB kept up that melodramatic habit of dropping by for a solitary drink in memory of the departed. But although she's surprisingly averse to cleaning for someone with such an anal personality, it seems she wasn't quite lazy enough to leave her crumpled cans and potato chip wrappers lying around the place. Well, it's not like I was living on my own. Only partially paying attention to the conversation, I wander over to the fridge and reach for the handle. Still cold. Guess the electricity's still falling. Want something to drink? Might have been a hasty offer. Nothing but beer and smoked cheese, huh? Naturally enough, I emptied out the fridge before leaving this cabin behind. What little we do have is clearly just leftovers from JB's visits. Other than the booze and snacks, there's also 3 bottles of my favorite eye drops sitting on a lower shelf. Probably the woman's attempt at a thoughtful gesture, in case I decided to return at some point. I retrieve 1 bottle of eye drops from the fridge and glance over at Makina. Hey, Makina. Catch. A sniper's eyes are their life. Give that stuff a try. If you apply some to both eyes 30 minutes before shooting and stretch your ocular muscles, your focusing speed changes pretty dramatically. Gazing curiously at the bottle in her hand, Makina carefully breaks the seal, then leans her head back with mouth slightly ajar to apply the drops. One drop per eye is plenty. No need to blink too much either. Give it a second and start slowly moving your eyes in figure eights. As her eyeballs begin to move back and forth underneath her lids, Makina's upper body sways along with them. Slowly open your eyes. Alternate between looking at something nearby and something far away. Helps get you focusing properly. That's all there is to it. Just repeat this 4 times a day. Morning, noon, evening, and before you go to bed. You still listening? Makina's eyes, after focusing at random on a distant object, have started darting back and forth. She's staring at the middle of a small bookshelf, where a single photograph of Asako and me as a kid stands in a frame. When I left this cabin behind, I deliberately flipped it face down in an attempt at symbolic closure, but now it's been returned to its original position. Alright, JP, mind your own business. Yeah, that's right. I reach out and take the frame from the bookshelf. This is the one and only photograph of Asako remaining in this world. It was taken not long after she first took me in, the day she dragged me off to a zoo in Ueno on what seemed like a whim. Not really a photograph I want to show off, but I pass over the frame to Makina, who proceeds to intently contemplate the photo inside. Asako glares at the camera, eyebrows furrowed in clear irritation. At her side, a younger me stares coldly at nothing in particular, eyes clouded but glittering with a venomous sheen. I've got a pretty awful look on my face, right? At the time, I was just completely empty, didn't give a darn about anything or anyone, pretty much just a dead kid that forgot to stop breathing. I guess Asako got so fed up watching me that she decided to try her hand at babysitting. Not exactly her field of expertise, you understand. It's a long story, but the abbreviated version is that my whole family died, and I was deeply involved in their deaths. I was responsible, so I couldn't just push the blame on someone else. That self-loathing was probably just too much for me to deal with. I wrapped myself up in a shell instead. But thanks to Asako, I managed to get back on my feet somehow. She gave me, if not a reason to live, then at least an excuse not to die. I might seem almost too vigorous these days, but if I hadn't met Asako, if Asako hadn't taken me in, I might as well have died a long time ago. Yeah, then she went and died before I had the chance to repay the debt. Unbelievable, right? That's not how I felt about it, actually. I didn't really mourn when Asako passed. I'd been prepared for the possibility she might die at any time, but for some reason I still had a hard time believing she was actually gone. Guess there was a part of me that couldn't accept that monster of a woman was really dead. If there was one word that described Asako, it was ridiculous. Not a shred of common sense in her body. She was a bull of a woman, and the world was her personal china shop. And to me, she was something like a god or a devil, maybe both. Okay, here's a story. This actually happened the same day that picture was taken. I was just sitting around, wallowing in self-hatred, holding a private pity party, honestly, as if that was going to make up for anything. All of a sudden, Asako grabs me by the hand and drags me off to the zoo. She showed me all these animals I'd never seen before. Elephants, giraffes, zebras, the whole deal, probably hoping to get at least some minor sign of interest out of me. But, well, I was really acting like a brat back then. I mean, I actually was a brat, but still. I kept myself inside that shell, not even twitching an eyebrow at anything she showed me. And I guess that attitude got Asako pretty irritable after a while. So the two of us are just standing there staring at the lions in complete silence. When all of a sudden this one big guy opens his mouth wide and tries to scare us off with a giant roar. And the next thing I know, Asako's bellowing, "Shut the heck up! Don't follow me! I'll kill you!" So yeah, that was the sort of person who'd get in. She was the sort of person who'd get into a shouting contest with the king of the beasts and win. Woman was nuts. I mean, her opponent was locked up in a cage. Anyone could have yelled at him if they wanted to. But when Asako screamed in his face, the animal actually flinched and then just backed away slowly. You should have seen the look on his face. So there I was, gawking up at her with my eyes wide open, thinking, this woman's a complete lunatic, when I noticed I was smiling. Guess that was the moment when I started slowly regaining halfway normal emotions. Well, I don't know about that. Who says meeting me was really a good thing? Hard to know for sure yet, don't you think? When you put it like that, I feel a little weight on my shoulders. Hey, Asako, I feel the same way as Makina. I remember what you said to me just before you died. Sorry, Yuuji. I ran my big mouth about teaching you how to live, but training you to do an ugly job in the shadows was the best I could manage. Maybe so, but I'm still grateful to you. Because even now, your words are what keep me stumbling forward. Without intending to do so, I ended up on a fairly lengthy digression about my past. Among many mixed emotions, a small flush of embarrassment rose to the surface. In an effort to hide this, I abruptly declared break time over, then led Makina around to the shed out back. Although we always called it a shed, the building itself is pretty impressive, not that different from the main cabin in size. It's a storehouse packed full of the tools and provisions necessary to live up here. I pull Makina along into the storehouse, seeking out weapons with which to confront the well-entrenched hordes of weeds that have foraged in the summer heat. Specifically, we retrieve a few hand scythes and spades, an old lawnmower, and a pair of straw hats hanging from nails on the wall. A good straw hat with a wide brim is indispensable for weeding under the blazing sun. I put on the hat Asako used when she was alive, then drop the smaller one I wore as a child onto Makina's head. It takes us another 5 minutes of climbing up the mountain to reach Asako's grave. Not far from the summit, her gravestone stands in a spot affording an unbroken view of the basin. Basin above, no, basin below. While the location may be good, the gravestone itself is hardly worthy of the name. It's just a huge, fairly decent-looking rock picked at random from the woods, then half buried in the ground to keep it secret. In fact, the rough surface of the stone doesn't even have her name chiseled into it. It's a crude marker and nothing else. Even so, there's no doubt that Asako's remains are resting here. I was the one who took the ashes from the funeral home and buried them, and I was the one who raised the gravestone above them. Religion. Asako's official position was no opinion, I guess. Policy, okay. She used to half joke about it. If I croak, just bury me wherever. I won't complain as long as you burn me up first. You can just poke a popsicle stick in the ground for a gravestone. Left with these half-done introductions to work off after Asako's death, JB arranged for the cremation, then agreed to leave the rest entirely to me. I was at a complete loss for a while, but in the end decided to make the mountain where we lived together her final resting place. Nobody criticized that choice, remote and lonely as it might seem. Asako never had a family to begin with, and her best friend JB had no complaints about my decision. But since I was the one who chose this place, the duty of maintaining it also rests with me. Starting the engine of the lawnmower I pushed up here from the shed, I have Makina hang back while I mow down the weeds in one sweep. When that's done, I switch to my spade and quietly begin digging away at their stubborn roots. Makina falls behind as I steadily work my way around the clearing. As I hack down the weeds and pull them out of the earth, she picks them up and collects them in heavy-duty trash bags. It's ridiculously hot, dirty, and monotonous work. Not a fun job in any way, shape, or form, but Makina holds out surprisingly well, not complaining even once as we fight our way through the overgrown wild grasses. We keep it up for maybe 2 hours, covered in sweat and grime. It feels even longer than that. By the time I finally sit down to stretch out my aching back, having fully liberated Asako's gravestone from the summer weeds that had nearly engulfed it. We filled 8 of our 70-liter trash bags to the brim. Well, yes, that's good enough. I slowly raise my tired body up off the ground, then turn around to look Makina in her dirt smeared face. Looking at the girl biting her lower lip with something uncertain in her eyes, I realize I've been hacking away at the weeds in total silence all this time. She may have been struggling along beside me in an attempt to be considerate. Slightly touched, I speak to her in the gentlest tone of voice I can manage. You're tired, right? Let's call it a day. Taking the towel I wrapped around my neck for protection against the sun, I whipped the dirt from her face. Apparently understanding from the gesture that I finished this simple greeting to my departed friend, Makina's formerly tense face loosens into a dopey, ticklish smile. By the time the colors of evening fill the sky, we've put away our tools and returned to the grave. I laid a bundle of wooden chopsticks resting on a plate from the cabin's kitchen, a small welcoming fire for Asako's spirit. Since Asako loved her drink, I also brought a can of beer from the fridge. Popping it open, I set it upside down on top of the gravestone and let the contents pour out. The thin, fluttering flame and its column of smoke are the signal beacon. The beer's the bait to make sure she doesn't hesitate to drop by. I close my eyes and press my hands together. A moment later, I can hear Makina do the same. Hey, Asako, I'm still dragging my sorry hide around, trying to figure out why you kept me alive. No luck on that front. But even so, I think there are a few things I'm starting to understand, little by little. The things I can do, the things only I can do, the things I have to do, and the things I want to do. Tell me something, Asako. Was this how it was for you as well? Did it start off as just a whim, taking me in like that? Even so, did that small presence at your side end up becoming your reason to live? I'm starting to feel like I can understand now. Not that it's complicated. It's that complicated, really. You just saw a face one day, and somehow you just vaguely knew it was the one thing in the world you needed to protect. Am I right? All of a sudden, you're telling yourself, now I get it. Maybe I've been living all this time so I could be here for this, to protect this one thing. This is Yuuji and Makina. I speak out loud to the wavering flame, introducing Makina to Asako's grave. See, look at that. I found something I want to protect as well. Just as you had your doubts back then, I don't know yet if I'm making the right decisions. And I understand that things never go as smoothly as planned. Amani and I, currently playing the roles of Mommy and Daddy, probably do possess broader experience and knowledge than Makina. And we like to think that we understand her to some degree. But even so, I can't say with any confidence that the well-intentioned advice we give her is necessarily worthwhile. In separating the right from the wrong, there's only one decision that won't lead you to regret, the one Makina makes herself. Right now, she says she wants to be a baker or a sniper, but whatever road she chooses to follow, the decision ultimately has to be up to her. You told me something about this once, right? If you want to choose the better path, listen carefully to the people who've walked the trail before you, as many of them as you can find. Fortunately enough, Makina's still very young. She'll have the chance to hear many people's thoughts, and I think she should actively seek them out. There's a limit to the amount of information any one human being can directly obtain. Don't get caught up with the things in front of your nose. Keep trying for the bigger perspective, and you won't go wrong too often. Yeah. Right, Asako? Hey, Makina, want to say a little something to Asako as well? Still clasping her hands together and keeping her eyes shut, Makina quietly opens her mouth to speak. If it wasn't for you, I don't think Papa and I would have met, so thank you. Makina's softly mumbled words hit me harder than I expected. Asako, you moved on and left me behind. You did enough. You accomplished the job you were here to do. That's why you were allowed to die. I haven't earned that right yet, but I'll get there someday. I know I will. Think you can wait for me until then? The gravestone offers no reply to my silent question. I know perfectly well that this entire ceremony is nothing but a way for those left behind to find something like comfort, but I can still feel heat spreading behind my eyelids. Alright, I'm hungry. Want to eat? Taking the plate in one hand as our small fire begins to gutter out, then seizing Makina's small hand in the other, I set off down the rough trail leading back to the cabin. As twilight gives way to darkness, I twist open the propane stopcock, then leave the bathwater to heat as I begin preparing dinner. But of course, the fridge is a barren wasteland, and the vegetable garden out behind the shed has run wild with weeds. Our only viable provisions at the moment would be the stores of vacuum-packed instant rice and canned salmon piled up in the shed. Can't manage much other than grill or fried rice with this. Pasta? Those are actually straight ramen noodles. Completely forgot we had that stuff. The packages Makina misidentified as pasta contain long strands of dried instant ramen noodles. We used to have these stashed all over the place, and the Hakata pork bones flavor, in particular, was one of Asako's favorite foods. After a few beers, she'd almost always devour a bowl of ramen heaping with vegetables. That brings me back. Asako used to make these for me all the time when she got drunk. Normally you're supposed to boil these for 3 minutes, but Asako opted for a 60-second stir-frying pan. Asako, I can't remember. She focused mainly on eating the toppings, picking out a well-simmered noodle only every once in a while. Asako. Makina, you haven't tried these before, have you? Want to have some? That said, we've got nothing in the way of toppings. Can't hope to imitate the Asako-style tower of fried bean sprouts and cabbage doused in vegetable oil. Fortunately enough, we do discover dry chives and roasted sesame seeds under the sink, if not red pickled ginger or strips of pork. It's little more than plain ramen. But in combination with the fried rice, we've at least got a somewhat respectable looking meal on our table 15 minutes later. Rather than dinner, it does seem a little more like an oversized midnight snack, but perhaps owing to Amane's strong anti-instant ideological leanings, Makina seems to find some novelty value in the meal. She gulps down the ramen in the blink of an eye, repeatedly yelping, "Delicious!" By the time we finished with this somewhat rough supper, the hour hand on the clocks turned past 8. Returning to Miyama at this hour would be far too troublesome, and more than anything else, I'm concerned about the danger Makina might fall asleep in the back seat and slip right off. All things considered, it'd clearly be best to set up camp in the cabin for the night, then make our way back tomorrow morning. Her belly full, Makina's already begun to mumble incoherently on the verge of sleep. I haul her to her feet and unceremoniously strip off her clothes. Then launch her into the bath with a kick to the rear, tossing her dirty outfit into the beat-up old washer-dryer just outside the bathroom door. Washer/dryer, just outside the bathroom door. Bathroom, no. You're still looking there? As I'm transferring her wet clothes to the dryer half of the machine, I call out to Makina for the third time in the last 10 minutes. Last thing I need is the girl falling asleep in the tub and drowning herself. If I strain my ears, I can make out the sound of Makina splashing around, washing her body. As well as her tearful rendition of Tuna Fishman's theme song, which mainly involves yelling, "Murderer man, fighting for justice," repeatedly in a jumble of English and Japanese. But seriously, is that ghastly human-tuna hybrid really supposed to be a superhero? Just seeing the character without any context, I'm pretty sure I would have picked him as a hideous monster of the week rather than the protagonist. But then again, the world's a place of constant change. Maybe the children of the world have acquired a taste for the avant-garde in their Saturday morning entertainment. Either way, it seems I've still got a lot to learn. When Makina gets out of the bath, I wrap a white towel snugly around her head and twist it back and forth until her hair is dry. Then slip an old Oxford shirt from my days as a student in America onto her as a temporary substitute for her clothes. Naked, except for a long-sleeved man's dress shirt several sizes too large, Makina begins loosely bending her waist back and forth like a patient suffering amoebic dysentery. Right. Amoebic. She then coos, "Ooh, la la," in high-pitched tone. Alright, wait here. I'll get a dictionary so you can take a careful look at the definition of the word sexy. Whatever my faults, I pride myself on my sincerity toward women. Before her bath, Makina's eyelids seem to have grown about as heavy as lead, but the hot water seems to have given her something of a second wind. It takes a little doing to get her crammed into bed. Although she nods off easily enough in the middle of the day, the girl also has a habit of refusing to fall asleep when you actually want her to. Normally I could leave this to Amane, but that's obviously not an option today. Fortunately, no matter how much Makina grumbles about not being sleepy yet, when I forcibly scoop her up, she always ceases the struggle and wraps her arms around my neck. Bleh. Basically, the girl's just scared of going to bed alone. After that, it's a simple matter of depositing her in bed and holding her hand for 30 minutes or so until she falls asleep in earnest. When I lift Makina's small body in my arms, I'm struck by the scent of familiar shampoo, mingling with the subtly feminine smell of her skin. It reminds me so strongly of Asako that I actually started a little in surprise.
ね、パパ、この前のお話の続きをして。
Which one was I telling you again?
ね、パパがアメリカに住んでた頃の話で、友達と賭けをして180メートル先の標的に当てたってやつ。
What, again? I've already told you that one 3 times today.
もう一回聞きたいよ。あと、みんなでハイキングに行った時の社会15センチの話も聞きたい。
You really like this stuff for some reason, don't you? I'm not sure why she finds this sort of thing so interesting, but Makina's burning to hear my stories lately. The flower pot, the cat, and the severed head. His name was Ryback, Unlucky Zippo. Where's the telephone? Adu Island. From among this very well varied assortment of anecdotes, there's one in particular that's clearly become the girl's favorite. Specifically, 180 meters from scrubbing the John. Right, so this was back when I was 14 years old, attending Uncle Sam's school in America. One day, I ended up making a bet with a classmate. I'd been distinguishing myself as a sniper at the time, and this particular classmate kept coming at me with this stupid line, "What's with the rifle specialty? Isn't your name Uzi?" Speciality. Yeah. Not only did I not fight back, I didn't show the slightest sign of irritation at the stupid joke, which eventually annoyed my classmate pretty badly. They ended up challenging me to a bet, hoping to knock me down a peg. The bet itself was about as simple as they come. I had to land a shot on a can of tomatoes from 200 yards. It sounded pretty pointless, so I refused to play along at first, but one of my classmates offered to take over a week's worth of laundry duty if I won. My perspective on the matter changed. After managing to bargain my way up to 3 shots, I ultimately accepted the bet, but there was one major problem: the rifle I had to use. At the time, I didn't have authorization to use anything but the small bore and its .22 caliber rounds. So inevitably, the gun I was using for this bet was just such a .22 LR Bulldog action rifle. Normally speaking, you want to be firing a small bore rifle at 25 to 50 meters. The bullet itself can travel a good 1,600, but the effective range normally maxes out at less than 100. Not only was I using this thing for a shot from 200 yards, or slightly over 182 meters, it was taking place outside where I'd have to deal with wind. Felt like pretty horrible odds, but on the second round I managed a solid hit. Naturally, that meant I was the winner of our bet, but unfortunately. One of the instructors found out I'd taken the rifle without permission, so instead of a laundry-free week of leisure, I ended up ordered to scrub latrines until poop smelled like daisies. But apparently the tomato can I shot is still enshrined in the school cafeteria along with photographic evidence. I'm not trying to get all nostalgic about my wild youth or whatever, but I can't help smiling a little wryly. More at my inability to tell Makina a halfway decent bedtime story than anything else. But when I finally snapped back to reality, I realized that Makina's closed her eyes and begun mumbling in her sleep. The lengthy trip and waiting in the sun must have tired her out after all. Feeling more than a little relieved, I quietly leave the cabin with my cell phone in hand. Although there is a tower relatively close by, the signal's not particularly good inside the cabin itself. I walk off a little ways until the meter at the top of my screen displays 3 bars. Then call up the contacts list and select Komini Sachi's name. After about 3 rings, she picks up the phone and instantly, not even bothering to say hello, begins hurling questions at me.
Kazami-san desu ka? Ima, dochira ni orareru no desu? Sakihodo kara nando ka o denwa o sasete itadaite ita no desu ga.
Sorry, the reception's not so great out here.
Kaeri ga osoi no de, minasan shinpai shite oraremasu. Nanji goro ni omodori ni nararemasu ka?
Right, about that, we're actually still in Yamanashi. Makina's already fallen asleep, so for tonight we're going to stay out here, then head back tomorrow around noon. Sorry for the trouble, but would you mind looking after Makina's crawfish and apple seedling while we're away? No, the signal's fine. I could hear you the first time. No need to repeat the question 20 decibels louder. See, now look what you've done. That noisy blonde's in full squawk. Not a problem, I guess. Huh? Hey, Sachi, what was that sound? I see. Sorry for the hassle. That's right. We should be back tomorrow afternoon, so I doubt it'll be a problem. But I'd appreciate it if you just kept an eye on them. Keep an eye on them. Thanks. I'll make sure to bring you some hoto and black honey rice cakes as a souvenir. What's up?
ご注意をいただければと。
Not to worry. I picked up a 24 pack of rubbers on the way over. It's a joke, don't climb up on me.
はい、25回目に気をつけてください。
What? I'm telling you it was a joke. I'm not going to do anything. In the first place, Makina is already asleep, remember?
寝ているところをつぶりと。
You're really determined about this, aren't you?
冗談です。風見流ジョークですね。
I'm going to hang up now.
はい。では、お帰りを心からお待ちしております。おやすみなさいませ。
Night. What's going on with that girl? I feel like there's a lot more venom in her tongue lately, and her problem solving's definitely getting a little on the violent side. Amani and Machira seem to think it's entirely my fault, but I don't remember giving Sachi any orders to act like this. In fact, I make every effort to give her only strictly appropriate instructions. But come to think of it, there was that one incident the other day. I was telling Makina another of my stories and paused to note the most efficient ways to help a panicked officer cadet regain presence of mind in Foxhole. Okay. Sachi, who'd been listening in, nodded with deep conviction and commented, I see. In other words, blunt weapons are the best medicine for derangement? Surely unrelated, just another example of the female need to blame every problem on a man. This sort of unfounded generalizing is probably exactly the kind of thing that turns women against us, but it helps me regain the necessary composure to make my second call. I choose Imani's number and return the phone to my ear. A completely unfamiliar woman's voice answers the phone.
Hi, moshi moshi. Dare?
Who the heck are you supposed to be? I pull the phone away from my ear and double-check the screen, but I'm definitely connected to the number marked Suomane. Hmm?
なんや、めっさ怒ってはるけど、どないしょ。
Hmm.
ああ、ちょっとやめてよ。それ私の携帯じゃない。返して。ごめんね、彼氏。今、アマネに返すから。もしもし？誰？ユージ？
Yeah, it's me. Who the heck was that woman?
ああ、ごめん。私今こっちの友達とカラオケに来ててさ。男の名前から電話がかかってきたからいたずらしたみたい。
You people aren't dabbling in hard drugs, are you?
するわけないでしょ。っていうか何？電話なんかしてきて珍しい。どうしたの？何かあった？ユージ、愛してる。もううるさい。静かにしてってば。
Amane, my friend, I prescribe a dose of blunt weaponry to the head.
は？何言ってんの？ちょっと待って、今部屋出るから。
On the other side of the line, I hear the sound of Amane opening a door and a chorus of shrill voices hooting at her.
ごめん、お待たせ。どうしたの？急に私の声が聞きたくなったとか？
Yeah, that's right. I just had to hear that voice of yours, so I couldn't help giving you a call. Did I make a nuisance of myself? No. I really hope he's telling the truth here. I see. Alright then, enough joking around. Let's get to the main topic. Here's the thing, Makina and I are currently in Yamanashi.
Hi? なんで山梨？あ、そっか。お墓参り？
That's right. Come up with the idea pretty suddenly after we saw you off this morning. I borrowed your Bogotaro for the trip.
あ、おば太郎ちゃんと動いた？
Yeah, you've been having trouble with the engine suddenly dying on you at random times, right? The CDI is probably the issue.
CDI って言われても私にはわかんないけど。
You're riding a hot rod and you don't even know that much.
だって改造したの私じゃないもの。っていうか、あの状態でバイク屋さんから買ったのよ。
What kind of store would sell a ridiculous lowrider like that?
16の時に免許取ってなんかいいのないかなって近所のバイク屋さんに行ったら、ちょうどそのお店の店員さんが大型に乗り換えるって話でね、前に乗ってたやつを安く売ってくれるって言うから何も考えないで買っちゃったのよね。でもまあ原因が分かってよかったわ。なんか信号待ちしてる時とか突然ストーンと止まっちゃって30分くらい冷まさないとエンジンがかかんないから困ってたのよ。
The wire inside the CDI is probably swelling from the heat, disconnecting it temporarily.
なるほどね。修理したらいくらぐらいかかるのかな。
I'm not a motorcycle mechanic. I can't tell you that much.
ま、いいわ。おば太郎が貸してあげるから気をつけて乗るのよ。
Yeah, understood. I won't do anything stupid.
マキナはどうしてるの？ちゃんとご飯食べてる？
Well, let's see. For lunch, we had cinnamon rolls and pumpkin bread Makina baked. Dinner was ramen and fried rice.
ちょっと、全然野菜を食べてないじゃない。約束と違うじゃないのよ。
Sorry, I'll make sure to feed her something green tomorrow.
きっとよ。なんか不安だな。朝昼晩とちゃんと食べさせて、夜の8時以降は何も食べさせちゃダメよ。
What? Is she some kind of magical gremlin? Well, whatever, I'll be careful. If anything does come up, you'll be the first to know. Whatever, I'll be careful.
わかった。それじゃあ気をつけて帰るのよ。マキナに怪我させないでね。
Understood. Alright then, good night.
おやすみ。ちゃんと私の夢を見るのよ。
Aw, you. Spare me, I give little lectures in my waking hours. For some reason, my dreams are always nightmares. Alright then, that just leaves... I scroll down to JB's name on my phone's contact list and press the call button. Have to say though, I'm a man of many callers. The trip itinerary I submitted to JB earlier didn't include any reference to staying the night away from my post. Of course, my employer is probably aware that I'm still in Yamanashi. I'd be very surprised if they hadn't been tracking the GPS on my other cell phone this entire time. Still, that doesn't mean I can get away with completely blowing off the formalities. Even if I do get in touch, it's easy to picture that saggy-headed blonde griping and scolding at me again. But if I take the initiative call instead of making her do it, the voltage of her lightning bolts should decrease slightly. What's this? You're burning the midnight oil over there? Kazami, Yuuji, and Makina. Status normal. My current location is Asako's cabin in Yamanashi. Scheduled return to post by 1200 hours tomorrow. End of message. After recording this extremely concise summary of the necessary information, I'm just on the verge of hanging up when I reflexively hesitate. After a moment's pause, I return the receiver to my mouth once more. Night, Julia. The hour being what it is, recording a little extra in the way of pleasantries shouldn't cause any issues. My message complete, I hang up and finally snap the phone shut. As I slide the cell phone back into my pocket, a sigh spills unprompted out of my mouth. In the isolated mountain night, the only sounds are the rustling of trees in the wind and the chirping of insects reveling in summer. I don't mind not hearing people or their machines in the least, but the bugs are fairly noisy in their own right. That said, it just makes you feel anxious when things get too quiet. Human beings are pretty hard to please. Hearing nothing but the sounds you make yourself is a genuinely terrifying thing. There was a time, years ago, when I woke up half buried under a pile of soil and sand. Better still, I couldn't remember how I'd come to be there. I must have stayed there for a good 3 minutes before finally recalling that a field artillery shell had landed nearby. Pushed away violently by the man behind me, I'd fallen roughly into my foxhole as dirt rained down. When I crawled up out of the hole, I noticed that my eardrums were malfunctioning badly. I couldn't hear a thing other than a high-pitched ringing sound. It was the middle of the night, so my field of vision was just as poor. The small slivers of moonlight trickling through the trees above weren't enough to make out any movement around me. The fear that had been swirling around my gut became a cold dread creeping slowly up my spine. It felt like I might be the only person on Earth, as if I'd been left behind on a dead and empty husk of a world. The night can be very dark sometimes. When I'm facing it alone, I always remember that moment. Asako. Looking up into the sky, I hear a name slip out of my mouth. Just how long am I planning to drag her memory around like a ball and chain? It's not like Asako wanted that herself. She told me flat out, didn't she? If I die, forget about me within a year. It's been a year and a half. I should have forgotten her completely by now. I promised I would. But it's hard, Asako, being alone. Stop sniveling and grow a pair. You have someone to protect yourself now, don't you? can almost hear the words, feel the slap upside the head, but she's no longer here to deliver them. Back. Yeah, we're back. Wow, that was fun. That was a fun time out with Makina there, visiting Asako, Yuuji's master. Very interesting learning more about Yuuji. I'm going to say that much right now. He's very fascinating. He's one of the more fascinating MCs I've seen in a while. Awesome. Bye.